Hello, so today I want to talk about the health impacts of hookah smoking and how it compares to cigarettes. When I first learned about this topic, I thought hookah had to be the middler option because it passes through water, but after studying how harmful products affect the body, I realized that actually it's more dangerous than most people expect. Okay, so hookah involves burning flavored tobacco, which sometimes is called shisha, if I'm saying that right, and that uses charcoal. Then passing the smoke through a water chamber down below before inhalation. And typically, a hookah session lasts around 45 to 60 minutes, and it actually is compared to about 5 to 7 minutes for smoking a cigarette. And as you can see here, there's a little pipe that attaches to the device, and the charcoals are up at top and the tobacco, and when you heat it up, it creates a smoke that you inhale. And the tobacco is, like I said, packed on top, and the smoke passes through the water, and then you inhale it. And a lot of times we see these devices at like hookah bars, and it's actually like really known for a lot of students to go to these bars because they're labeled as something cool and they have a bunch of different flavors. Okay, so I wanted to compare this to cigarettes because cigarettes are kind of like the main concept of when we think of smoking. And one thing that differentiates between hookah and cigarettes is the burning of the charcoal. In cigarettes, tobacco is combusted directly, and in hookah, you get nicotine from the tobacco, but you also get a high carbon monoxide from the charcoal, and that also includes like heavy metals, so like lead, arsenic, PAHs, formaldehyde, acetylide, and a bunch of different other carcinogenics. And in terms of CO exposure, some research showed that higher levels of hookah smokers than cigarette users, which made me rethink how filtered it really is. And the water cools the smoke, but it doesn't remove the toxins. It just makes inhaling easier. So you can inhale more and more and more within those 40 minutes. So users take a longer drag and they hold the smoke longer. And that's also one of the things that we calculate in pulmonology is we base on like when you're basing on lung cancers, it's how many packs you smoke and how long the drags are. So it's actually worse to consume the hookah because you're allowed to have longer drags. And cigarette smoking, it contains highly addictive nicotine, and hookah, it contains highly addictive nicotine also, and users may actually absorb more due to the deep inhalation, like I said before. And then the toxic compounds both have carbon monoxide and heavy metals and carcinogens, and the difference is that the hookah actually has the charcoal. The smoke volume, so 8 to 12 puffs of a cigarette is 500 to 600 milliliters of total smoke, and in the hookah, 200 puffs is up to 90,000 milliliters of smoke, which is equivalent to a 1 hour smoking session is equal to 100 cigarettes, which is insane because I never thought that was actually a thing. And the risks are clearly, they're all harmful. Like we said, the often misconception is that hookah is a better option because it's like filtered through water and it cools it and that it removes the toxins, but that is not true. Okay, so some of the risks that are associated is even though there's flavored and it's shared casually, hookah still delivers nicotine. So physiologically, it activates the same reward pathways as cigarettes do, but it feels relaxing and social. People underestimate the dependence risks. And this also, we talk about the short-term and long-term effects of it, and we have increased blood pressure and heart rate, elevated CO levels, which can cause headache and dizziness, airway inflammation and reduced lung function, And transmitted diseases, that's something that a lot of people don't realize, is that you all share the same tip pipe. And so if someone has oral herpes and they use the pipe and they pass it along, they can transmit different diseases to the people around them who are using the same device and same mouthpiece. And the long-term effects are increased chronic bronchitis, COPD, lung cancers, coronary artery disease, oral cancers. The list goes on and on, but those were just some of them to name. So this comes down to addiction. So like I said before, we know that the hookah also activates the mesolimbic dopamine pathway, which leads to addiction, and it leads to you relying on this substance to get that certain high feeling. And nicotine exposure leads to the activation of the mesolimbic dopamine pathway and its reinforcing behavior. This can lead to physiological dependence, tolerance, and withdrawal symptoms similar to cigarette smokers. And flavored tobacco increases the use in young adults. So like I said before, some of the bars, even downtown, are marketed as a hookah bar, and you're able to go in there and pick a flavor and sit and talk with all of your friends. So it's very appealing to young adults. And it actually started from the Middle East and Europe, and this is actually well known in the area over there, and they actually use it very, very, very socially, more than they, kind of like how America uses cigarettes, they use their cigarettes as hookah. So people who may have grown up in Middle Eastern families or countries may see hookah as a very socialized and normalized get-together that you can do with friends and family. And I don't think many people realize the risks that follow along with it. And many new users who are not cigarette smokers are highlighting the public concern for the use of hookah. And it's actually really concerning, because when you think about the dopamine reward pathway, you think back to the lectures we learned about and how dependent your body can become on this and how addicting it can be. And once you reach that area of addiction, it becomes harder and harder to let go and to stop that addiction. And something with hookah that I feel like is consistently changing, and that it's so marketed out there, it is now going to become the new generation of cigarette smoking, I feel like, and I think it's going to be even more worse. Same thing with the electric e-cigarettes that many children my age are using. So hookah isn't a watered down alternative like I thought. It's concerning. It's prolonged exposure to toxins, with the added risk of the charcoal consumption and the social transmission. It's very concerning. And before this course, I thought cigarettes were the obvious villain, but now I don't think so. I think hookah is worse if we want to scale it on worse or bad, and I think it isn't safer. I think it actually exposes users to more smoke and more carbon monoxide, in some cases higher carcinogenic levels than cigarettes. And the water doesn't filter the toxins, it just disguises the harshness by adding more flavor. By cooling the water down, you're able to inhale more, you're able to get that nicotinic feeling in your brain faster and longer. And it's, like I said, it leads to deeper inhalation and higher absorption. A single hookah session can equal the smoke exposure to 100 cigarettes. That is insanely unhealthy. Hookah carries the equivalent or higher frequency risks of cancers and cardiovascular disease, pulmonary injuries, and I think that we need to be more socially aware and notify the public about how dangerous these hookah sessions are, and make sure that it's known across all colleges as well, because I feel like the young college students are the ones who are kind of using this more. And I think that moving forward, from what I've learned about hookah, I think that it is not a good alternative and that it needs to be taken off the market.